Hey there, you're live on the line with Eve and Forrest. Can you tell us how to say your name the right way?
Vadim is fine.
Okay.
Vadim. All
How
right.
are you? What do you want to talk to us about tonight?
Hi. I wanted to talk about a few things. Um, so I'm a theist, and I debate with other theists, and I wanted to talk about one thing that I always bring up to particularly Muslims and Christians, and about why why it is unjustified to torture somebody for eternity or punish someone for eternity for finite crimes. And usually,
Mhm.
what I get as a response is that these are um, the crimes aren't finite because the crimes are against an infinite being, and that somehow like warrants eternal punishment somehow. And I really don't know how to respond to something like that, because either way, I feel like the so if we go by biblical logic, like even the smallest thing is a sin. So just like stealing
Mhm.
a candy bar from the store, or something like that. Like, that would technically be considered like a sin, or lying. So I don't understand how that would be like justifiable for eternal punishment. And I don't know how to
Yeah,
respond to people
Oh,
when they
you're
say
asking
it's
how to.
against an infinite being.
I have one.
Sorry?
Yeah,
What a
please.
big poopy baby this infinite being is. That its ego is so weak and fragile that it has to hurt you real bad forever because you were mean to it. That's my big thing. Like the morality. I'm 100% on your side in that respect. That the morality of it is completely out of whack. The idea that you are going to punish someone internally because they did something finite is ridiculous. The idea of hell in general is ridiculous, but especially as an eternal torture is a particularly cruel, stupid, and absurd. And as someone who does shows like this a lot, I have also been faced with that. That like, oh no, it's just because he is an eternal being and God is eternal, therefore your punishment must be. What an asshole! That doesn't make it better. There's no logic there. You just made him more of a dick, because if he's gonna be this super all-encompassing eternal being, then it should be wiser than to behave like a super powered toddler. That's my take on it. Eve, do you have something better?
No, I mean, I just think that what's the use of a God that only offers accountability that doesn't actually impact anything that happened or is ever going to happen again? So now you've
Truth.
created a being. If this God is all knowing like they claim, then it knew when it made that being that it was going to end up eternally tormented or punished or whatever, and he made that being anyway. So that means you have a creator making things purely for the sake of sending them to eternal punishment. And
Yep.
if you believe in that God, like that's where we get into a whole nother debate. But if you believe in that God and you're choosing to worship it, then I think you're on the wrong side of morality.
For sure. For sure.
Uh, yeah, I definitely 100% agree with you. Um, However, I don't think the concept of hell in itself is, well, so for example, if we go to Hinduism, the concept of hell in like Hinduism, like in Naraka, as they call it, it's different greatly from, like, for example, the Christian hell. Would you personally say that the concept of like afterlife punishment, we'll call it, is still like unjustified? So like, let's say I did something really bad to somebody. Of course, you and I both agree that that person doesn't deserve to be punished infinitely, because infinite punishment, it's kind of like an oxymoron is the word. Because punishment is meant to rectify. That's the goal of punishment, in my eyes at least. So would you personally say that the concept of limited punishment for like an afterlife, would you still consider that to be unjustifiable?
I mean, more importantly, I just don't think that we have any reason to believe in any afterlife. So it's hard for me to even go down that thought experiment. If I do go down that thought experiment, I just think it doesn't make any sense to have a God only hold its beings accountable in the afterlife, not in the life where these things are actually happening and occurring. So that would be my first thought. It also depends on what the punishment is. It depends on what the crime. Like these would be very nuanced things. Um, but
Mhm.
most importantly, I just see no reason to believe that there is any kind of afterlife. And I also don't see how that's useful to us here and now.
I would also throw out that, like, if someone's gonna even in that scenario where, like, oh, well, there's a minuscule punishment after death. There's this temporally isolated punishment after whatever. My question is still, by what right does this God exert this punishment? Who the hell put this guy in charge? What does he think that he has over me to exert punishment? This God's sins far outweigh my own. They're talking about the maniac who drowned the whole planet because some people misbehaved. I'm sorry, I don't give a fuck what you think of me or what you think of my sins, because the definition of sin is going against God's will. I don't give a fuck about God's will, therefore I don't give a fuck about sin. So, like, if this guy is sitting here watching every bit of torture and rape and murder and evil all throughout the world, watching millions of people starve to death, watching as countries bomb each other into oblivion, and is then going to look at me and be like, yeah, but you masturbated, so after you're dead, I'm gonna find a way to fucking torture you or something like that. Who the fuck are you? I don't answer to you. I don't answer to that. And God may
Right.
judge me, but his sins far outweigh mine. And I have a saying that I like to live by. I don't take advice, or pardon me, I don't take criticism from anybody that I wouldn't also take advice from. And I certainly wouldn't take any advice from the God of the Bible or the Quran. They are monsters. So I'm definitely not going to take their criticism either. And if you're talking about, well, maybe they just have this little bit of punishment, what gives you the right to judge me, let alone punish me?
Mhm.
I'm a better person than this God.
100%.
If anybody's going to answer to anybody,
100%.
this God should be answering to us.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of goes kind of back to my beliefs. Like I guess I guess what you would call a polytheist, but but maybe an atheist in the sense that I don't believe in a creator deity. And
Okay.
I believe that I guess these deities are imperfect, so they have the same imperfections as us. Um, and you read of all these stories, like in the myths and stuff like that, about these gods. Even though they're not seen as perfect, they still punish us. So I
Mhm.
can I can kind of sympathize with where you're coming from. Like, who are these beings, or being, or who, whatever it may be. Like, who are they to punish? Yeah, if
Yep.
if they're like imperfect like I am. So what you said, it really kind of made me think a little bit.
No,
So I appreciate that.
we're here to help. I appreciate you.
Um,
You are calling in as a theist. Would you like to talk about what you believe and why you believe it? That is not what you called about, so I'm not going to pressure you on it if you don't want to talk about it. But if
oh
you'd like to,
sure.
we'd be happy to hash that out with you as well.
Oh absolutely. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to talk about that.
So
Um,
you
so
said there that you believe in imperfect deities. Why do you believe that those imperfect deities exist?
um, so I have no other argument other than the personal experience. And personally experiencing said deities, and them appearing to me, and things like that. So I think it's called like a personal gnosis, I guess you would call it.
Sure.
I'm not sure if that's the correct term. But yeah, that's basically what I believe. Um, and like I've
How
had
did
experience
you
with the said spirits.
how did you determine that you were having experience with imperfect deities and not, an hallucination or a lapse in memory or, a myriad of other things that I'm sure you would say somebody else was having if they
Um,
claimed something that was contradictory to
sure,
what you experienced?
sure. So I suffer a lot from like mental illness. Um, and when I suffer a lot from mental illness, and when when I've experienced some of these deities that come to me, I noticed that a lot of my mental illness, my paranoia, my depression and things like that, it goes away. It goes away, or at least it like shortens. The intensity goes like lower. I'm so sorry. English is not my first language.
No, you're totally
That
Your
makes
fine.
English is better
wonderful
You're
sense
than
you're
to you.
com
yeah.
yeah, you're communicating just great.
I'm just trying to figure out like ways to explain what I'm trying to say better. But
Can I
You're doing
ask
great.
these
how
are experience.
how
I also. Oh, I'm sorry.
what no, it's okay. What makes you think that those are actual experiences with deities instead of something your brain, an experience your brain has created to kind of provide some coping mechanisms for you? I'm not saying that they're not helpful. I get what you're
Mm,
saying because I had
mhm,
and I still deal with anxiety sometimes, but I had really extreme anxiety and depression years ago when I was a Christian, and um, I could sit and pray and like sit and worship in my prayer closet and all that and feel a bit of relief. It didn't end up being near what it was when I finally sought professional help, but in that moment, that kind of offered me something, and I would think that I was hearing from God. I would think that God was talking to me and stuff, and then I was able to determine that that was actually myself providing kind of moments of reprieve for my brain and the intense things it was facing. Which, by the way, I'm so sorry that you are dealing with those things. But what
Mhm.
caused you to think that it must be this instead of possibly your brain looking out for itself?
um, it could be that maybe I just don't understand the human mind as as other people, and so maybe I came to this conclusion. But the thing is that I feel like it's so vivid, and when I dream and I have like the way I dream, these deities appear to me. It's so much more vivid, and I feel profound than it is when I have dreams that sometimes don't mean anything. And
Mhm.
that I guess the emotional experience it's very intense. That is unlike anything I've experienced before. But like I said, you could 100% be right. Um, and yeah, basically. And I feel like a part of it is just as silly and I agree. It's probably irrational. It's that I genuinely want to believe that there is like something out there that I'm not alone. I
Mhm.
genuinely just want to like believe that there's something that transcends me and us. That's like with me. You know what I mean? That's why I kind of believe in like deities and spirit guides and things like that. And it's also, I guess you would say, cultural. But
Mhm.
I've also had things like psychic experiences as well. Maybe not with deities. I guess this would be a separate topic. I don't want to go too off topic.
You're
Only if
fine.
you if
I
you'd
think
like to.
so. I think what's really important, Vadim, is that like what you're saying is you brought up that you have some struggles with mental illness and whatnot, and I appreciate you being so open with us about that. I'm not going to pry in any
Absolutely.
of that, but I do think it's important to put aside that for just a second and just acknowledge the fact that like everything you're talking to us about here in terms of like dreams and visions and comfort when these with these experiences and psychic experience and all these things, these are things that we get calls about every single day from people who don't struggle with
Mhm.
any mental illness or anything like that. So like I think that what Eve was talking about is really really poignant and important, and I think that you don't write it off. I also have struggled with anxiety and depression in my life, and like meditation and even though I was an atheist, I'm meditation, calming down, focusing on one thing, resetting my mind a little bit, massively help. Um, and so, like, even from a non theistic perspective, those types of behaviors help. And we get calls all the time from theists of different stripes and their different faiths and their different backgrounds and different belief
Mhm.
systems that say the same things as you, that have similar experiences. You haven't mentioned a lot about your experiences, but I guarantee I have heard somebody talk about whatever experience you have and then even wilder things as well, because that's just the nature of belief. There's a reason why this is an active field of study in lots of different kinds of sciences, trying to figure out why the hell people can get behind such wild beliefs and that conflict with each other. They surely all can't be true, but people do
Yeah.
believe them. So I think what you're experiencing, just from what I'm hearing, listening to you, is absolutely no different from any other theist of any other faith. who has beliefs that are deeply meaningful to them, that calm them down when they revisit them, that they believe so strongly that they end up having a feedback loop of, confirmation bias, where they expect when they have this dream, this vision, this experience, whatever, that it's going to be so powerful and so meaningful, and so it is, because that's how your mind manifests it. um and especially if you're struggling with a mental thing as well, which happens to everybody, no shame in that. I feel like that could compound it for you, especially maybe even if it isn't actually affecting it, but you might write it off as that and say, okay, well, this is giving me some leeway, some grace to believe this a little bit more, not to be as strict with myself because of this. So honestly, I think you are in a very wide and diverse company with your beliefs now. And I think that if you were to be a little bit more critical of them, you would be in much better company with a bunch of people on channels like this who have believed like you in the past and have shed those beliefs and are happier and better off
Yeah.
for it,
Yeah, and it sounds like you're being really honest about where you're at with all of it too, which is
which
more
I
than I can
really
say for
appreciate.
like 95% of people that call us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think what
dude.
Forrest said is right on. And I'm sure you've heard us talk about if you've listened before, recovering from religion. Even if you're
Mhm.
not looking to change your beliefs or anything like that, they have so many amazing resources. I wish I had known about them when I was questioning stuff, when I was experiencing that amount of anxiety and depression, all of that. They're not going to try to deconvert you or talk you in or out of anything. They're just going
Mhm.
to offer support. And they have the
Yeah,
secular
I
therapy
appreciate it.
project, all of that. So I think you're on a really solid path, and I appreciate your being honest and
Yeah,
candid with us.
yeah. Um, I'm always I'm always looking to change my beliefs because I wanna always know what's true. And I guess that's part
Awesome.
of the reason, why I called in today, because
Mhm.
I want to be, I don't want to challenge. I want to be challenged. And
Yeah.
so I do apologize in advance if I, said stuff that other people have said before. I don't want you
No, no,
guys to
no.
feel like
No,
a
no
broken
need to
You're
record
great.
apologize.
of any
No,
sort.
that's fine.
Um,
You you
but
have nothing to
it's
apologize
very
for
hard
at
for
all.
me. Yeah, thank you. It's just very hard for me because I feel like, yeah, I understand the concept of the afterlife is different from, what we were talking about when it comes to deities and stuff like that. But it's very hard for me to although I always want to know what's true and I'm always wanting to be challenged. It's hard for me to accept that there may not be anything after I pass away. It's very hard for me to accept that because I'm
Yeah.
afraid that, like, what if something happens in my life to where my life decreases in the happiness, like something happens to me. Let's say I tomorrow I get hit by a bus and I get paralyzed, and my life becomes very unbearable. And yeah, I'm aware that any moment, like, life is fragile, and I can die any moment. It makes
Yeah.
It,
me sad that there may not be anything that happens after. Hard
Yeah.
for me
That's
to
I would,
normal.
accept, and I got to be
yes,
honest.
yeah. If it's
That's so
okay,
normal
I
to
would give
feel that
you,
way.
yeah, I would just give you brief things. Number one, you're absolutely right. Life is very fragile and could change or end at damn near any time. Average human lifespan in this country is 80, if you're lucky. Assuming I don't get hit by a bus on the way to work tomorrow, you know what I mean? So it's definitely something to think about. Um, and that makes right now more precious and more beautiful and more fun. Make sure you're dedicating your time as much as you can to shit that matters to you and makes you happy and improves the world around you. That's why I do shows like this. You know what I mean? Number two, if you were to become paralyzed or some horrible thing were to happen to you in that case, I would encourage you to look out to a group of similar people who have been through similar things and find out where they continue to derive joy and meaning in their lives. Your life isn't over because you have some disability. It just changes and you live in a different way and you experience joy in a different way. And like that's totally fine. And so like that to be afraid that things are going to get worse, they are. And they're also going to get better. And then they're going to get worse again. And then they're going to get better again. And that is the nature of existence. And then finally, if you're really afraid of death, I would encourage you just to imagine how you got around and how you got by and how you put up with the 13.8 billion years before you were born. and you'll be doing the same thing after you die, Vadim. It'll be just as easy.
Yeah.
I like the from
Yeah.
Plato's Apology, before Socrates dies, when he takes his punishment. They say, "Are you afraid of death?" And Socrates says, "No, of course not, because if there is an afterlife, I'm going to spend the rest of eternity interrogating the most brilliant heroes in history and learning about them. And if there is not an afterlife, then quite frankly, I could use the rest. And that's okay too."
Yeah. I absolutely agree because I do have these moments where like I'll slip in and out of theism, if that makes sense, because one thing that always gets me, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. I understand you have other callers, but I just want to make this one last, I guess, statement, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
And that is, I really understand atheists because like I said, I slip in and out of atheism. I was an atheist for many years, and one thing that always got to me is the problem of evil, especially animal suffering. Because we look at nature and we see how cruel nature really is. And like we look at Palestine and we see babies in Gaza being bombed, and it's just I
Yeah,
I
dude.
understand because it's hard to believe that there is anything outside of ourselves. And even if they were higher beings, why aren't they doing anything about the state of the world? Because as far as I'm concerned, there's no intervention at times. So yeah,
Mhm.
I'm struggling. I've always struggled, to be honest with you, and these are just some of the things that there's some of the ways that I think.
No, that's totally
I
reasonable. Eve, if you have
yeah, I
something, I've
think
been talking this whole.
no,
You go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think you're on a great track, and I think with that sort of intellectual honesty with yourself and with others, you're setting yourself up for a lot of uh, cool conversations, and I hope good things in life too. So I appreciate it again, and you're welcome to call anytime. This was a great call. You should go look at the comments after this. Everybody in the chat is like rooting for you and has some really lovely things to
Absolutely.
say. So, and
Yeah,
I host on
for
Chew
real.
Gum on Tuesday nights, and we love having conversations. Actually, we talk to theists a lot where it's not a debate, and so you're welcome to call there anytime to talk about any of this stuff.
Awesome, fantastic. I really appreciate your time. I think you guys have a very good contribution to the world and challenging some of these really harmful thoughts that people have, and I think it really makes people think. Actually, watching this show, it it was one of the reasons I deconverted from Christianity. And although I'm not an atheist, I still have a lot. I feel like a lot less harmful of those views. So I just wanted to say
Love
thank
to hear
you
that.
for your
Of
contribution.
course.
So
I think
Thank
you're on the
you.
right track,
thank you
Steve.
very
I think
much.
you're going to be just fine. Take care,
Vadim.
dude. Bye.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.
Later.
You too. Bye. What a
What a
lovely
fucking
caller.
can all the calls be that? That was
Can all
lovely.
theists be like that, please?
Hey, come on, man. We gotta promote that clip we all just watched.
Well, I'd rather not shill.
Okay, well, Daddy has a $2,000 a month red oak habit, and I am your production god, and you will shill when I tell you to shill. Dance for me, baby.
Go, God damn it. Why did my life come to this? Go to patreon.com/call-the-line and donate. God damn it.
This is what happens when we let live chatters write our scripts.